There was a time where Metal Sonic felt like the most threatening character in the franchise, a time where I could even argue that he was the coolest character amongst the cast. The first real rival Sonic ever had, a dark reflection of what Eggman sees as the perfect, most ideal version of Sonic, cold, calculated, and deadly. Metal has always been a favorite of mine, but there's been a few problems lately that's hard to ignore. He's been consistently used more, but comes off less threatening each time. There's also the lack of Metal having any real meaningful usage in stories, thus leaving him in this weird position in the franchise where he exists, but without any real nuance or substance. And as the cast continues to expand, more interesting characters continue to be introduced and utilized, thus further pushing Metal further into the background. I can't help but ask the question, who are you, when I look at him nowadays? He no longer looks to be the same Metal Sonic that captivated me when I was younger. The concept of identity can be a tricky thing. Many characters in a franchise have changed due to creative meddling or something else, so I kinda question how right it is of me to cling on to something from the past in the face of a future that will continue to change and evolve. Anyways, I want to just talk about Metal Sonic and reflect on some things. But first, let's time travel. I want to have a quick look at the creation of Metal Sonic, as I feel it's key to understanding why Metal is so important and integral to this franchise. Metal Sonic is the genius creation by Kazuyuki Hoshino for 1993's Sonic CD. When provided design notes, the words Sonic's arch rival and Sonic's doppelganger jumped out to Hoshino, and he immediately had an image in mind as to what he wanted the character to look like. From the red iris that light in the darkness, to the slick and metallic design, and to the robotic shell without a soul, Metal Sonic was a meticulous creation to perfectly contrast Sonic in every way. Naturally, since Metal is a robot, it led to a variety of ideas on how to make him stand against Sonic's natural speed. Hoshino has a knack for using whatever is cool, and the jet engine producing so much force to help Metal keep up was one of those cool ideas. When creating characters, one thing Hoshino admits is that he tries to make sure the character is linked to the core game design and has something to do with the gameplay, along with using what is cool to him at the time of creation. Despite not being playable in Sonic CD, Metal's purpose in the game is to drive the players to rescue the kidnapped Amy Rose and save Little Planet. His holograms throughout the adventure taunt you at every turn to try and stop him and Eggman. The climatic showdown between Sonic and Metal in Stardust Speedway becomes a thrilling race to see who the superior Sonic is, but it's also the start of imitation versus authenticity. If something is fake and tries to imitate the real and authentic, could it ever surpass it? Could the fake become the real and the real the fake? An internal question that's etched into the dynamic between Metal and Sonic. Metal's core design and philosophy he would follow is entirely unique to the mind of Hoshino, as he admits that there was no formal process when creating a character in the old days. It contrasts character creations today, as Hoshino admits in an interview that creatives need input from other parts of Sega just to make sure newly introduced characters will be loved by many people. Knowing that Hoshino had no outside assistance and was able to craft Metal by himself makes the birth of him that much more special. Whether Hoshino would know it or not, Metal would go on to become another character to shift the status quo in the franchise. It wasn't just Sonic vs. Eggman anymore. Sonic now has an evil version of himself to contest with and keep him on his feet. Metal's popularity would also continue to grow as he continued to appear in many games past his debut. His popularity even persisted so much that he even starred as the main threat in the 2-episode 1996 animation Sonic OVA. This was actually where I was first introduced to Metal Sonic. I remember my mom buying me a copy of Sonic OVA on DVD, alongside a copy of Sonic Underground, but it was the OVA that ended up hooking me the most. Since I wasn't aware of Metal Sonic's existence up until this point, the OVA was what really painted my idea of who and what Metal Sonic was. And looking back, I think the OVA was a good introduction to his character, showcasing the best parts of him such as his threatening aura, his abilities to match Sonic, and also the philosophical debate between the real and unreal. I love how Metal's philosophy was displayed. He believes that there's only room for one Sonic and that the world isn't big enough for two of them. Despite being the clear inspiration, not once does Metal show any hints or doubts at being fake. There's this silly moment after Metal's first fight with Sonic that I think about a lot. After defeating Sonic, Metal stops by the place Sonic presumably resides at and confronts the old owl. It's believed that the owl was attacked or worse, but when Tails and Knuckles arrive later and see him, it's revealed that the old man owl is factually fine. He's only wearing Sonic's favorite clothes. Something that Tails points out is that if Sonic sees him in those, he'll get upset. But the owl comments that Sonic flew away after giving him these clothes, thus making it obvious to Tails and Knuckles that it was Metal. It's such a silly scene that at first watch may not bring any deeper thoughts to mind. but there's a bit more to it. It's a scene meant to further show how intrinsically connected the two Sonics are, along with Metal already starting the replacement process. Metal got himself acquainted with someone that he's supposed to know as Sonic. Tails is upset with the owl wearing the clothes, but why? It's okay because those are Metal's clothes after all, and today, Metal felt like letting one of his friends wear them. Despite how funny the scene is, the deeper implication there about Metal already beginning to replace his fake self is a bit eerie, since again, there's no hints or doubts about him being fake. He's being genuine. I think the best moment showcasing his philosophy is at the end of the second fight with Sonic. It's a moment that I love so much, and it's the saving of the President and Owl. Metal potentially realizes that the fight between him and Sonic is over, with Sonic as the victor. He then goes out of his way to save the lives of the two people Sonic cares for. Other than seeing how hard Sonic was fighting to save them towards the end, I always assumed the connection the two of them shared made him want to change course and assist in the end. While in the eyes of others, Sonic's prize for winning is the lives of his friends being spared, I think it's a bit different in Metal's eyes. It's less about dangling Sonic's friends as a prize to be won, but more so enacting a miracle to make sure the status quo remains the same for this Sonic. Metal acknowledges that if Sonic is the only real one in this world, then these two who have been present in his world before should continue to exist. In Metal's eyes, with his existence being gone, nothing should change. It's as simple as that. But in the eyes of Sonic himself, it's him seeing that deep down, maybe Metal does have a heart and a possible good moral compass. He isn't just a soulless being that exists only for destruction. Regardless of the two differing perspectives the two see in that moment, they both connected to one another and understood what the other felt. Metal feeling Sonic's relief, and Sonic feeling Metal's cold but genuine help. For Metal himself, in the end before his demise, he doesn't accept Sonic's sympathy for losing. He rejects the hand to save him and instead embraces death. His final message makes it clear that you can't change how he feels. The world, again, isn't big enough for the two of them, and one of them has to go. His portrayal in the OVA influenced how I would see him moving forward in the franchise, not just because he lives up to the hype of being one of Eggman's greatest creations, but there's a level of nuance given to him despite being a robot. The idea that Sonic and Metal are connected on a deeper level past the surface of looks is interesting, and something that has continued to persist in the franchise till this day. The two of them don't even have to exchange words to already know how the other is feeling, and it makes for one of the more interesting dynamics and rivalry that Sonic has to compete with. It becomes a question of how strong are you when you're looking at yourself in a mirror, and in the case for Metal specifically, it plants the seeds of jealousy and inferiority. While the OVA could only tackle so much in its limited runtime, these ideas would be explored more in a future title. For now, at least, if you grew up playing Sonic CD or watching Sonic OVA, you were given two pretty good introductions to his character, and his popularity made sense. That love of the character I had from the OVA would carry on to Sonic Heroes, where he would appear with a new design and importance again in the games. When I got my hands on Sonic Heroes and watched the intro, I automatically knew it was Metal given his iconic eyes, but I was really intrigued by the new mysterious design he was rocking. But there's stuff to be said for another time regarding Sonic Heroes and his story. I did enjoy the stuff I got out of it with Metal Sonic, and found Heroes to be the peak of his character. Metal still held on to the belief that there was only one Sonic, but his prior defeats changed everything. He grew conscious and realized that to become better, he needed to change himself. He physically modified his body and morphed himself into something much more. He was no longer content with just being Eggman's servant, so he devised a plan to take full control over Eggman's empire and rule the world with the Robot Kingdom. And he even went as far as to study both Chaos and Shadow from the previous two games. A way to showcase his intelligence but desperation in doing whatever possible to have the upper hand against Sonic. This further allowed him to transform into that of a dragon, which harkens back to perfect chaos, but also allowed him to tap into the chaos energy to reform his own version of chaos control that's taken from Shadow. Lastly, he updated his name to Neo Metal Sonic to make it clear that he was a newly reborn being. Everything about his story in Sonic Heroes to this day is still amazing to me. As a character deeply troubled by an identity crisis, going off the deep end and becoming an unrecognizable monster. One who can't let go of an obsession that was programmed into him, thus being trapped in a never-ending cycle of trying to prove he's the original, despite forever being a copy. I mentioned that the seeds of jealousy and inferiority were planted back in OVA. While OVA doesn't share a direct connection to the video games and exists in its own bubble, I think it still had merits worth mentioning given that it was supervised by Sonic Team, and it was created in a time where the characters were beginning to be fleshed out more and more with cutscenes and voice acting. The OVA feels like it served as a hint as to what could be explored in Metal's character if there was more episodes of Sonic OVA or in future material. And I think Sonic Heroes nails exactly the next logical step in extreme for his character. Despite his evolution, I love that Metal Sonic found agency and became tired of being stagnant. His growth led to the freedom of crafting his own identity. His dialogue during his final fight with Team Sonic while in his Metal Overlord form offers a glimpse into the mind of a disturbed robot that's done with the past and ready to create his own future.
Long time no see, Sonic, my loathsome copy. See me as I am, no longer afraid of anything. I shall become the ultimate overlord, ruling as the world's most supreme being. Sonic, I was created for the sole purpose of destroying you. But I can never seem to defeat you. That is why I transform my own body with my own hands. But that was the past. Now you're nothing but a speck of dust to me.
And despite all of this, Sonic still taunts Metal over believing that transforming himself into a monster would be enough to beat him. All of this and the gameplay itself makes for an intense final battle and one of my favorite in-game fights in the entire franchise. Before I move on, I have to bring up the main battle theme, What I'm Made Of, by Crush 40. For many, myself included, this is the definitive theme for Metal, while others such as Stardust Speedway and even the very underrated self-titled theme from Howard Drosten are classics, I feel like this is the song that perfectly captures Metal's desperation of breaking free and proving himself. This song also can be interpreted at certain points to be from Sonic's perspective as well, thus continue to tie into that special connection both Sonic and Metal share of knowing how the other feels. The ending makes everything come full circle as Metal Overlord is defeated and yells about being the real Sonic, and once Metal reverts to his original form, he can only ask why he can't defeat Sonic before going offline. It closes the book on his attempt to break free and gives Metal a bit of a tragic ending, knowing that in the future, his defiant programming would be stripped away from him, thus reverting him back to his usual, obedient self. For a character birthed from the miracle game that is Sonic CD, who has heavy themes around the concept of you can do anything, or the concept of freedom, it's rather tragically poetic that Metal is held back while his counterpart continues to run freely onwards. But now with the events of Sonic Heroes over with, the problem becomes that nothing else is really done with his character. Metal does make future appearances in games, but again, he's back to being a robotic servant to Eggman. There is that weird moment with Sonic Free Riders, where Metal goes against Eggman and steal everyone's data and race against Sonic, but that's such an outlier that goes absolutely nowhere. He's ultimately back to being stagnant. And I have to stress that this isn't a bad thing at all. Eggman fixing Metal to be back in line with the Eggman Empire and his loyal servant once more isn't bad, since that only adds to the tragedy that is Metal's character. But I think the problem comes with the lack of using Metal in any more meaningful ways from this point onwards. We don't even get to see him utilizing any extra abilities that he gained from Sonic Heroes as a way for him to acknowledge the past and to refine for the future. His Neo form is a good example. It never makes a reappearance again in the main games outside of the recent Shadow Generations, where his Metal Overlord form returns, but it's more of a trip down memory lane for Shadow than it is for Metal. As much of a huge fan I am of his Neo form, I can respect the Sonic team internally have decided to never bring it back for future games, given that his main design is iconic. It still begs the question of why wasn't a specific feature from Sonic Heroes carry over, and that's the ability to talk. I don't think Metal Sonic should become a character that speaks all the time non-stop like the majority of the cast, but rather he should have a switch in him that allows him to go from being mute to being able to talk. Ideally, Metal would stay mute majority of the time and his actions will speak for himself, staying in line as the threatening robotic creation of Eggman that strikes fear into the hearts of many. But I think on rare occasions, he should flip the switch on to be able to talk, and that's when we're able to hear his thoughts on whatever's going on. It could be a single word or a single sentence, something to make him engage a bit more with the cast and the world around him, and those rare moments when he does talk ends up being just as impactful as the moments when he doesn't. Metal today feels less like the threatening, interesting robotic copy of Sonic that he was in the past, and feels more like a regular badnik within the Eggman Empire for Sonic and others to beat and keep it moving. It's to a point now where the cast of characters rarely see Metal and Universe as too much of a threat, but more of an annoyance. And while there's an argument to be made that they have fought and won against Metal time and time again, it strips Metal of the threatening title he should still have. More than that, his constant usage feels more like a detriment to his character since nothing interesting is being done with him, and he exists as fodder and nothing more. It feels like Metal suffers from the opposite problem that many other characters such as Silver and Blaze suffer from. While the latter two suffer from lack of exposure, thus severely limiting their potential to do anything cool, the former suffer from overexposure, while getting moments that are meant to be seen as cool but come off as uninspired or boring. A good example of this is his usage in the Sonic 4 saga. He received some random new power in episode Metal, and an even worse recreation of his iconic Sonic CD race. Nowadays it feels like Metal is only good for reminding us of his glory days. I love Sonic Generations, Shadow Generations, and Sonic Mania, but all three of them have the same thing in common of reaching back into the old days to remind us of one of two iconic moments with Metal when the franchise felt like it was trying to do something with him. And when we get new stuff not calling back to his glory days, it's pretty much on the level of Sonic Forces. Metal doesn't even get a chance to have any meaningful moments with other characters despite appearing so much. Sonic Racing Cross Worlds is a big offender to this, when even during a more chill event, characters seem more annoyed about seeing Metal than they do Eggman or even Zavik. Metal has no voice lines to respond to other characters and repeats the same animations over and over, and it feels lackluster. This is honestly where the voice suggestion comes into play, where I think the races would be the perfect chance for him to react and give both the fans and the character himself some added substance. It would at least make Metal a bit more engaging too. A lot of characters end up receiving stellar dialogues that made them either more compelling or fuel fan theories about their future, but unfortunately Metal missed out on all the fun. Now, while the games have continued to use Metal in unimpressive ways, I don't think side materials such as comics and animations have been all that stellar either. There's not much to say with the Sonic Boom sub-series. He kinda just exists to be defeated, and he's stripped from all his engaging nuances that made him compelling to begin with. The animated shorts he appears in are nice fan service stuff, but stuff not to be taken too seriously. And admittedly speaking, I am a big fan of episode 6 of Sonic Mania Adventures, but the Sonic Colors Ultimate one is a prime example of Metal being shoehorned into something he wasn't needed in. The Archie Sonic comics were very, convoluted, which is completely on brand for the comics. While I won't do a deep dive on what happens to him there because that could be a video in its own self, I will say that the Archie Sonic comics do try to take Metal in a more interesting direction. The original Metal Sonic from Sonic CD is transformed as time goes on into being a more heroic robot that's actually friends with Sonic and the rest, and can actually speak. This version of Metal goes by the name of Shard, and I do think that he serves as a possible good future type version of what Metal Sonic could someday become if he were to break free from the Eggman Empire and be reworked into a good guy with a conscience. There's also Metal Sonic V3, which is more in line with the game Metal Sonic we're used to, both pre and post reboot of the comics. Small praise goes to Archie Sonic for giving us a small moment with Neo Metal Sonic. Oh, and there's that one time Metal Sonic was turned into a pirate to fight Blaze? Archie Sonic is weird. The IDW Sonic comics, on the other hand, are less convoluted and have tried to use him a bit more in somewhat engaging ways to mixed degrees. He was the main antagonist of the first major arc in the book, and it was actually really interesting. We get to see Metal in his own Neo Metal form again, and there's more done with him compared to what was done in Archie Sonic. Given that IDW Sonic takes place immediately after the events of Sonic Forces, we're able to hear his actual thoughts on things as he awakens in a post-Sonic Forces world. With his master being defeated and missing, Metal takes on the mission to take the helm of the Eggman Empire temporarily and search for Eggman, and this is a genuinely good way to handle his character. While he's back to being a servant, he's taking control in a way to further benefit Eggman instead of harm him. We're seeing Metal for the first time ever in the full position of leading the Eggman Empire he was born into as well. While I give praise to this arc in IDW, and seriously I do, issue 7 is one of the greatest Sonic comics ever written and drawn, it comes with a huge asterisk when talking about it. The short length of the arc and how it concludes is what holds it back a lot. Not only is it a quick arc, so there isn't really enough time to flesh Neo Metal out as his role as the leader of the Eggman Empire, because we're moving at a breakneck speed to find Eggman / Mr. Tinker, but the ending conclusion of the arc amounts to being Sonic Heroes 2.0 but less interesting. Metal absorbs the energy of the Master Emerald to turn super in his Neo form, transforms into a new dragon form, and then gets defeated by multiple characters working together. The fight is flashy and cool, but the narrative lacks any real punch behind it, and it fails to hit the same way the original Sonic Heroes did over a decade ago. After this, Metal would just go back to being his regular self. Even after finding Eggman, we never see him in anything too interesting, never see his Neo form again, and he's in constant fights that usually end in a way you expect it would. It has become a thing in the community where you see disgruntled fans almost anytime Metal loses a fight in the IDW comics. The biggest one from recent memory was during the IDW Sonic Imposter Syndrome arc, where Metal has to fight against Surge and Kit. While I wasn't annoyed with this fight given that this is the Imposters arc to show off their strengths, and the 2-on-1 matchup was not in his favor, I can understand the frustration at seeing Metal Sonic once again being used as a stepping stone to make other characters look better. Now, things aren't all bad. For all the mixed or negative things I've said about IDW, there's still at least one good thing to come out of it, which is Reflections, a story dedicated to Metal Sonic that is part of the larger Metal Virus storyline. While a short side story, we see Metal reflecting on recent battles he's been in before coming across a tub of Metal Virus that has been infecting many people and turning them into zombots. Metal tries to dip his finger in the virus to see if it would affect him, only for nothing to happen. In contrast, he knows that it's affecting Sonic and slowly taking over him. It's a pretty good side story that focuses on Metal's identity issue, as he's faced with the existential dread again on what makes him different from Sonic, something that we haven't seen explored too much in a franchise in such a long time, despite being a core part of his character. The page of him standing in silence is absolutely brilliant, and is one of the best moments in the entire comic run thus far. There's been a lot to say regarding how I came to like Metal and what's been going on with him, but there's one last thing I want to talk about. I've had a question in the back of my mind since 2022. It's been a question I didn't want to ask at the time because it felt too soon, but given that it's been a few years now, it feels like this question is fine to ask, especially given the current events in the franchise. Is the introduction of Sage a bad thing for Metal Sonic? I've been holding off on this question for a while now because during the time of Sonic Frontiers release, none of us were really sure what direction things were going. Eggman being written more as a father in the games, a new character with potential long-term ties to the Eggman Empire, and a potential to shake up the status quo once again. All things we could only speculate on that could easily have been reversed. And for the most part, many people were focused on speculating whether Sage would make a reappearance or how her dynamic affects Dr. Eggman. While Eggman has been shown to be a bit of a father figure in the Western comics with Metal Sonic, it never really bled into the games like that, but Sage marks the first time that it has, and it shows new sides to him that we haven't seen before. I think things have really hit a breaking point where the question needs to be asked and discussed given the recent release of Sonic Racing Cross Worlds. In it, Sage appears, thus reconfirming that Sonic Team is adamant about pushing her as one of the reoccurring characters in the franchise now, but she has dialogue with Metal Sonic that makes the relationship between the two of them feel a bit questionable. Both her dialogues with Metal have her picking at his rebellion in Sonic Heroes, and how she wants to examine his coding to make sure he's still in line. But a few times she also points out how Metal's aggression is an anomaly, and how he's being unusually confrontational. Given that Metal doesn't speak at all, we have no idea if there's something deeper behind his aggression or not. Maybe he's just always this way, but it's still worth pondering why he's so confrontational towards Sage. As far as I'm aware, she's the only one that points this out. A bit of a theory I had that ties into the larger part of this video is that the more Metal has been used, the more useless he has become, not just in the eyes of the fans, but Eggman himself. What once was held in high regard as the greatest invention Eggman had ever created has now been dropped to being just a standard enemy that isn't as impressive anymore. I wonder if Eggman now wanted something more than just Metal, and that's how we got Sage, someone to do what Metal Sonic once did before and shake up the status quo. And granted, this theory only exists because of how Metal Sonic has been treated lately, and how the creative team have been writing Eggman these past few years, now with Eggman being more of a father figure towards his creations. It's not a theory I think is that deep and worth diving into, but given how much has been changing lately, I hope people can see the angle I'm coming from with it. But back to the main question at hand, is the introduction of Sage a bad thing for Metal Sonic? No, I don't think so. I do think her introduction does put more spotlight on how much Metal has fallen over the years. A single character shouldn't spell the end for another, but with all the endless push for Sage lately and the lack of anything with Metal, I can see why it could lead to the frustration amongst Metal fans. To look at the question from another angle, the introduction of Sage can actually be seen as a positive for Metal. Another character to have a new dynamic with, one that can open and explore new themes as well. The potential is there, but it really relies on the direction the creatives take with this. Sage is being introduced in a comic soon, so we'll at least get to see how they plan on expanding the relationship between her and Metal soon. Because it has been taking me so long to actually edit and complete this video, the official Japanese Sonic channel has posted a new image showing Metal and Sage together for the holidays. The image depicts Sage creating gifts for her new family. Metal Sonic holds his while Sage gazes from afar. I feel like this image now being the latest addition to their growing relationship helps paint a clearer picture that Sage does care for Metal. While her lines in Sonic Racing Cross Worlds may feel a bit antagonistic towards him, it feels more like those comments were coming from a place of love and concern. She's still new to the family, so the way she interacts with everyone is still a developing thing. But what about Metal? While it doesn't necessarily confirm or deny whether Metal's aggression was aimed squarely at her or was a general thing, I do want to highlight the text that comes with the image. I get the sense that if Metal does have any aggression towards Sage, it has faded now or is beginning to fade. It doesn't necessarily matter to Metal whether Sage likes him or not. The important thing is that he can recognize her loyalty to Eggman, where aggression at her isn't needed. I get the vibes of Metal being this closed off older brother. Cool in action, emotionally cold and distant. Sage is the younger sister that's showered with praise by everyone except her older brother. the one person she struggles to understand but wants to connect to. There's more to explore, and we'll see it soon. While we wait on that, I do want to quickly acknowledge the movies and their potential effects. The movies have so far been good with bringing life back into the characters that aren't Sonic, Tails, and Eggman. There's a chance movie 4 could handle Metal really well, changing the trajectory of his character in the main series. We may even get a year of Metal of some sort to really give him spotlight and push him forward. Who knows what the future has in store. While I'll always love Metal Sonic, I guess at the end of the day, I just want more. I don't want him to feel like an everyday badnik and instead have that threatening aura with layers presented and explored. I think there's a balance that can be done where you can have adventures where it's not a super deep and complex usage of his character, but then there's ones where it is. It just feels as if lately, the franchise has leaned heavily on the former more so than the latter. To end this long and exhausting talk, I would like to point everyone in the direction to one of the best Metal Sonic stories I have ever read. One that's from the Japanese Sonic Channel site, a story from 2021, which to me is still the best Metal Sonic story we received in the modern era of today. Metal and Sonic racing in Speed Highway with both of them putting their best on the line to win. The same feeling and nuance that I got from Sonic OVA and Heroes can be felt in the writing here. And genuinely, these Sonic Channel stories from 2021 are great reads and deserve more attention. I won't spoil the ending and the link to the story will be in the description below, but I implore you to take the time to read it if you're a fan of Metal Sonic or the dynamic that persists between him and Sonic. Reading it again after so long felt like a breath of fresh air and a reminder of who and what Metal Sonic is.